So, all right, guys. Okay, we're yeah. So we are live. Good. I don't know. Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Apologies for being late. And we had some issues with the other instructor that was meant to be here, but we have Mark now. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on this call on very short notice.
Yeah, no issue. So Amaka, uh, there's this noise, I think from your
Yeah,
microphone.
we'll have to mute. It wants to rain over here.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So I'll take it up from here. So guys, let me know in the chat if you can hear me and if we're good to go. Okay. Yeah, sorry for the delay. Yeah, according to Amaka, we were actually trying to get the other instructor, and unfortunately, I was stuck in a meeting, in a stand up, basically. So yeah, I'm looking at the chat and just let me know if we're good to go. So I
I
can
think we're
see.
good to go.
Okay, good then. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. We'll be talking about a couple of things on AWS, and I'm sure some of the previous instructors have given us some I would say introduction, right, around AWS and probably some of the services. So yeah. Let me share my screen and quickly open my management console. All right. So just give me a minute as I'm doing that right now. Okay. All right. So let's see what we have here. Um, all right. Amaka, please kindly let me know if I'm currently sharing my screen, if you can see it.
Okay. I can't see your screen yet, Marv.
Yeah. I'm still trying to share.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just pulling the call here to a different screen so I can see the messages because I believe we're going to have like a bunch of questions. So yeah,
All right.
yeah. So let's share now. Okay. All right. So I'm currently sharing my screen, and we have AWS right here. Please, I want to know how many of you have been able to create your AWS accounts. Let's before I jump into discussing, AWS CloudTrail, CloudWatch, as well as CloudFormation. How many of us have been able to create our AWS accounts? Please let me know in the chat, and let's be fast about it. Okay. Uh, Let me know if I need to assist or I need to give some of you tips on how to go about that. Um, okay, so someone is saying not live yet from here. Are you referring to Joshua? Are you referring to my screen or you're referring to your account? Okay, so I think Tamidayo is saying my payment information is still pending. Okay, so I have that's from Osare, and I had issues with my Nigerian account. Okay, so this is the tip I have for you, right? Go ahead and set up a virtual card with these virtual card platforms. I would recommend Gray because I use it, but my recommendation does not mean I'm saying I have anything to do with Gray. Okay, so just in case something happens tomorrow, I use Gray for now. I was formerly using a Payday, right? But I decided to use Gray. It's not free, right? I think creating the card would probably cost you about I think Amaka, can you help me out here? I think it's 3,000 naira, $3 or $5, right? Amaka,
$1.
$5, yeah. Okay. So Amaka said $5, so it will cost you $5 to create your card after setting up your account. It works. It works for me. I use it. So basically, if you want me to, I'm going to be sharing a video with you guys showing how to create, a new account, how to put in your details, and of course wait for approval. So yeah, Okay, so I think Osara is saying you do not need payments. So basically they will charge you $1, right, just to verify that the card is working, and it will be refunded. Okay, and after that, when you set up resources, they will definitely charge for those resources. Resources are primarily built on the plan called pay as you go, right? So this is kind of like a cloud a billing method, right? Pay as you go offering. Whether you're using AWS or Azure or GCP, it's mostly pay as you go, except you decide to set up some kind of sports instances where you would be charged probably a certain amount based on the based on the resource you actually set up. Okay, so but it's primarily pay as you go. So mind you, when you create a new resource, when you initialize a new resource and you are done using it, if you are not setting it up for production or testing, if it's just to learn, always remember to shut it down. Okay, always those resources. Okay, yeah, remember to take it down, shut it down. If it's an EC2 instance, EKS, ECS, or even down to your Lambda functions, don't just keep services littered around on your account. Okay, so always take it down. And yeah, so what I'm going to be sharing with you, give me a moment. I think I would love to probably um, okay, so I'm going to explain a couple of services. I would have loved to share, how to basically set up like, proper security, and also setting up like a separate account so you don't use your root account based on the best practices. But what I'm going to do is that would come up in a workshop session, right? So we'll be having workshop sessions. I've announced that already. I told you guys earlier we're going to be having workshop sessions. So for now, let's just quickly spend the next 20 to 30 minutes talking about cloud formation, and yeah, so just give me a minute to do that. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off with CloudWatch, and then I will talk about CloudTrail before we discuss CloudFormation. Right? Now, the first thing here, CloudWatch. Let me quickly jump into CloudWatch. By the way, if you want to, open a specific service, if you want to access a specific service, you can quickly search. Right? So we have the search right here. All you have to do is, click here and basically type in the name of that, service you're trying to use. Okay. So I'm going to search for CloudWatch, and when I type in cloud, you see I already have a couple of items coming up. Right? So let's just type CloudWatch, and now you see I even marked this as a favorite service because I love to always, check this out. There are some other tools I use as a drop-in replacement, right, in my personal workflows. And along the line, we'll talk about some of these tools in the workshops as well. So let me go ahead and click on CloudWatch. Now, the thing about CloudWatch, the way it works is that it's primarily used for monitoring and observability. All right. Apologies, I'm not sharing any slide. I personally prefer hands-on rather than sharing slides. But if you have questions, you can always ask your questions on the Discord server or reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will definitely respond to you. Okay. So CloudWatch is a monitoring and observability service, and it basically provides general insights to your AWS resources, right? Whether it's an application, and this is taking time to load, but let's give it a few seconds. So it provides insights to your resources, right? Whether it's an application or a service, like a Lambda function. Okay. And it also collects and stores metrics, right, based on that particular application or service. You can also set up alarms and even generate logs and events from CloudWatch. So let's see. My network is a bit messed up, so let's try this again. All right. Okay. So right here, I have the CloudWatch, dashboard basically, and of course, you can set up some other dashboards. But just to give you a general overview, this is what it looks like, and you have some introductory, messages here telling you how the application insights work. And of course, we can configure application insights. But let's take things one step at a time, right? Looking at the dashboard here. If I click on the favorites and recents, it's going to show me like the custom dashboard I have built, alarms I have set on this particular account that I just set up for this class. I don't really have like a custom dashboard, right? But I can simply jump into logs, and I can click on log groups. So if I click on log groups, for most of the activities, I'm sure I gave permission to this particular account. So we should be able to see. So you see some of the log groups we have created, right? Now there's something called permissions, of course, right? If you don't give appropriate permissions to the sub accounts you create within your organization, of course they will not, they wouldn't be able to see some of these things. So you basically have to learn to give permissions, and I'm going to teach you how to do that during the workshop as well. So you can basically create new users, set up your permissions, and give the users access to some of these services, or probably make them an administrator to see all the services. Now, it's not advisable to give a user, general administrative privilege. So the best thing is you're always allowed, you're always asked to, give the specific permissions that you want that user to be able to, carry out, right? In your AWS account. Okay, so let's try out. I think this is website serverless API dev. This was a sample. Okay, so let's see if we have. All right. So when I select that, this is a Lambda function that was created, right? Some time ago, right? And we were using this to basically, send out. We're using this on an application, right? Basically, on a front end app. Now, the front end app would need to send some details to, to the company, to the business. So basically, the users come in there, they enter their details, and you basically channel or send this information from the front end to the back end. Everything was basically, happening on this serverless Lambda function. All right. So now this is the log, right, that was basically collected, via this, AWS Lambda, as you can see. And when you open the log group is going to, contain a couple of log streams, right? This is an example stream. And if you take a look at this, you can see the date, attached to this. So, let's just go ahead and click on the first one here. So when I click on the first one, it will show you all the possible logs, right? So what exactly happened, it's kind of like showing you the details on the activities that have happened in this specific, Lambda, function. Okay, so if you set up a particular service, whether it's a Lambda, S3, EC2, when you set up a service and you're basically using that service, you can always use CloudWatch to track and monitor, right? That's why I said monitoring and observability. So you can track and you can monitor what is happening within that service. Okay, so you can always check out the log groups, and you would find that particular service right in here, and then you can track. Okay, by selecting the log group, that will then give you the log streams. If we check out the metric, let's just click on all metrics. Okay, so when I click on all metrics, if you take a look at this, you see that we are basically tracking some of the metrics based on the, based on the specific region, right? We're currently on the US East 1 region, which is North Virginia. And you can see it basically has like some of the metrics based on the services, right, that we have used or we have created in the past, okay? So let me go down to all metrics again. Let's select all. So if you take a look at this, you see we have some metrics right down on DynamoDB, API gateway. You can basically select, whichever you want to select. So let's go to EC2. All right, so let's see per instance metrics. Okay, so we have a bunch of metrics that you can measure, right? You can track. Okay, when it comes to your EC2 resources. All right. So, and this is just a way to say, okay, we are currently building a solution. We're trying to, understand the network throughput, the network going in or the network out. We're trying to basically, understand, the network packets, right? That's what I just described. And of course, the CPU credit balance, the network in, the disk write. You can basically track with some of these items. And basically you can create like, a dashboard using this, specific metrics. All right. Yeah, so let's click on the Explorer next. Okay, so if you basically have like items, I'm going to choose EC2 instance by types. Okay, okay. All right, so when I select EC2 instance, what you're seeing here is we're basically seeing like, the T2 micro CPU utilization. So it's showing us the different instances and, different, CPU utilizations based on what we are running, right? So on this account, we currently have, various T2 micro instances running, which is an EC2, right? An EC2 machine. So we also have, T2 small and T2 medium, right? Services that are running, right? Resources that are running on this account. So we're able to measure that, and this would tell us if we have probably reached peak usage, right? Or if something is actually wrong. We can even track the health, right? We can track the health, and there are so many things to actually look into. I'm just trying to show you some of the important or most important ones that we use. But of course, it's a good idea to explore and get to learn from most of the things you see here. Now, alarms are very important. So let me just explain what you do with alarms basically. Okay, so the idea about alarms is, you can basically set up an alarm to trigger notifications or automated actions based on metrics thresholds, right? So if you basically set up a threshold within, you actually open a metrics and you say, I want to receive this notification, right? If my CPU utilization gets to this specific point, right? It means something is probably wrong with our application. Maybe our application is now over consuming the CPU or the memory, right? And we basically want to trigger an alarm if anything like that happens. You can basically set that up in alarms. Okay, so you create an alarm. You can basically then select the metric. So we probably want to track like an EC2 metric, right? So let's go ahead and select a particular option. As you can see, I'm not setting up anything here because this is actually a live account, right? So because of the time, I just finished with my stand-up. I could not, create like a fresh account. So if you look at this now, this is like, the blog.bettercopper.com. If you scroll down, you're going to see, the Kids Club. You're going to see Techie's Garage. You see, we have a bunch of products and services, the dashboard. So even Amaka's website is even right here. So we can basically try to measure something on Amaka's website to say, okay, if we're trying to track like the CPU utilization, you select the plus sign there, and you then, yeah, I've added that right now. Okay, so you can actually select any other option you want from here. So this is all right. So I think that is the item I already added. Let me do that again. Let's see. EC2. Okay, let's do that again. Please, as I said earlier, always remember to, delete some of these things when you're done. So let's say CPU utilization. So, we can basically add like some of these items, right? So we can add this to graph. We can basically add to search. Let's do this. I'm adding it to the graph. So you see now we are basically, tracking with this graph, right? You can add more items, right, to this same graph. Okay. And if I select the metric here, so you see CPU utilization, that is the metric name, right? And I think I actually selected the wrong thing right now. So this is for Kids Club. So if you take a look at this, you see our CPU utilization is actually very high. And you can then choose to, I'm not going to save this, but of course you can choose to say, okay, if this is greater than a specific threshold, right, which has to be a number, of course. If it's greater than a specific threshold, or if it's greater than or equal to, or if it's lower than or equal to, or if it's less than, right, a specific threshold. So this is more like we're trying to set up a query kind of, right? So we want to work with a static threshold here, and we say whenever the CPU utilization is greater than or less than, right, or greater than or equals or less than or equals to this specific threshold, which of course has to be a number based on what you see here, right? Go ahead and give us this alarm, send an email to this user So that is basically how this is done, and we are going to explore more on this in the workshop, right? With a fresh account. Okay, with a fresh account, you will learn how to create an account, set up permissions, set up security, create sub accounts, and basically use most of these services. So I'll just give you like a breakdown, the key features once again of CloudWatch. You can use this to track metrics and alarms, right? Set up alarms. You can of course use this to watch the logs, right? So it's kind of like giving you a central store where you can basically view the logs of activities, happening within your resources. Okay, and you can of course set up events. So CloudWatch events would help you, respond to changes in your AWS resources. Okay, so when you set up an event, it's like saying, when this happens, the alarm is coming to say, okay, this has happened. Then the event is what you use to, trigger something, right? Do I want to shut this down? Do I want to, extend or increase the size of this resource? Do I want to call a Lambda function that would send an email, to my coworkers? I mean, you can set up multiple events because the way AWS services work is you can easily integrate one service to another service, right? So if this happens, send an event and send that event via Lambda. Trigger that event via Lambda to basically perform some other operations. Okay, and of course, as I said earlier, looking at some of these metrics, you can then use this to build a dashboard. Okay, you can use those metrics to build your own dashboard if you want to. So this is a dashboard I think we built myself and Bob sometime in the past during a class. Let me see if we can still track anything here. Okay, so I think it was taken down, but you can basically add widgets to like your dashboards. You can specify the type of uh, uh, um, uh, chart you want to use, whether you want to use a log table, an explorer, an alarm status, a text item. So you are basically building a dashboard, right? I would love to go with a log table here because I'm sure we can pick up some logs. Okay, and of course you can build custom widgets, right? So you can code up your widgets using a Lambda services and of course more services. I'm sure, especially serverless services. So let's click on next here, and we are going to let's wait for a while. Okay, so if you take a look at the log insights, right, looking at the fact that we selected the option for picking logs, we're given a query view. So from here we can basically run queries to basically fetch records from your services, and you can then render that. But we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to select a custom query from here. So let's see if I try to fetch. Let's use a Lambda query because I'm sure we have some Lambda functions here. So this is a query that would basically view the latency of a function, with a 5-minute interval. Let's see if we can. Okay, so let's see if we can just select a log group instead. So one of the log groups we tracked earlier. Okay, let's use this log group for example. So I'm trying to pick a log group that would, probably have some data, because I'm not really sure if some of these services are still running. So let me check that. Okay. So we do not have services. Let me see, in the past maybe 12 hours. Okay, so I don't think we have any item there. So custom, I'm simply going to select weeks, but I doubt if this is working. So the way it works is you select from your log group, right? And then you run your query, based on the time that you select here. So it will return some results, and when you see that it has some results, you can then create your widget. Okay, so but this account probably do not have. Oh, okay. So I can see we have some records I selected, 4 weeks ago. So these are definitely old records, about 272. It seems like I have some messages. So let me see. the chat. So have you tried using S3 service yet? It keeps returning me back to card completion. It means that your account has not been completely verified. So please check your email for any message from AWS. Um, so when is the workshop sessions? It will be communicated to you on Discord. Today we launched the workshop page, right? So workshops.topuniverse.org. It went live today. So you'll be getting to see the workshops here. This is just a sample workshop, a previous workshop, but we deployed this page today. So you'll get more information this evening or tomorrow morning on the Discord server. Someone is also saying no, but I've tried Code Deploy to deploy a sample app and it's free. Well, I will tell you, most of these services are free to use. Maybe as a new user, probably it gives you like a 3 months, free tier, or if you're using like, the free tier. But please be very sure that you check most of these things so that you don't get unexpected billing. Okay. So if I create a widget from this, yeah, you can use the free tier for sample projects. Always remember, to take down some of these things so you don't forget, because when you have these instances running for long, it would leave that free tier after a while and it will start charging. Okay, and if you have money in your account, they can actually debit you, right? I've probably lost maybe more than 200,000 naira, from such mistakes, and it's better not to make those mistakes. So yeah. Okay, so these are some questions that I have to answer based on. I'm just going to. I'm going to delete this anyway. So let me just select some of these options. Surprisingly, it's okay, not compulsory. All right. So it says no data found. I have to go back in time again to you know weeks. Let me just let me just choose months, and it will then try to load up the yeah, so it's loading up our request. So as you can see, we have some of the requests that have passed through these Lambda services. Okay, so that is it for CloudWatch. Trust me, it is not difficult, and I know I was a bit fast. Okay, that was intentional due to the fact that we've spent some time already, and but we still have another session coming up soon, and I'll be there to explain even further. All right, so that is it for CloudWatch. There are so many other things to discuss here. We'll discuss those things in our workshop sessions. All right. So let's talk about the next item, which is basically CloudTrail. Okay. So I'm going to use the search option here again, and CloudTrail. So when I type in CloudTrail, you see I have that service right here. Let's go ahead and click on it. Okay, so yeah, of course, leave. So it's going to leave this. I did not save this, right? That is why it was asking that question. I did not save my previous action on CloudWatch. All right. If you have questions, please drop it in the chat. I am looking at the chat as well. So someone said, yes, sir, you're right. I also experienced such incidents, which was a prompted, which was what prompted the questions. Yeah. So you can use the free tier, for building a lot of things, right? But be careful. Try to make sure you understand the free tier, and of course, I'll be explaining some of them as well, to you. Yeah, during those workshop sessions. Just come to the workshop with your question, basically. Okay. So, what exactly do we use the AWS CloudTrail for? Now, the major purpose of the CloudTrail is for logging and auditing the services, that we are using or that we create, right? Is mostly, is mostly for auditing. So let me put it this way: you have 5 users, right, using or creating services within your AWS organization. Okay, and I'm not going to explain that because, as I said earlier, I did not create this account to teach you guys specifically. So during the workshop, I will explain from scratch, how you create the accounts, you set up your account. So I will show you how to set up new users. When you create 5 new users on your account and you issue these credentials to 5 cloud engineers or maybe developers as well. When they create new services, new resources, or they delete resources, or they put a hold to these resources that should be running, CloudTrail is what you use to measure and track who did this or who did that. Okay, so it's majorly used for audit trail, for checking, the integrity of, log files stored in your S3 bucket. Yeah, to make sure that some of those files are, properly stored and encrypted if you set up those files to be encrypted, of course, right? And it can also be used for integrating with CloudWatch, so that while you are tracking those logs using CloudWatch, the events and the alerts can basically be integrated into CloudTrail, right? For better observability, basically. Okay, and even more and even more. So most companies would also use this as a way of compliance, right? Internally, so to know to track the history of who did what. As I said earlier, that is compliance, right? So let's start off by creating a trail. Remember to check the pricing, right? When you hear, when I think someone has been saying it's completely free, please always check the pricing. Always check the pricing, okay? This is a business we're talking about, so always check the pricing. Most resources are free. Most services on AWS are free, right? Especially services that do not. I would say services that work mostly with integrating, one service with another service. Okay, if you're using the services for DevOps related actions like you mentioned, code pipeline, code commit, code deploy, do your best to check it very well. Code Star, right? Some of these services would have some, pricing attached to them. Some will be completely free, right? API Gateway, I will teach you how to use those services as well. Especially if you are working with API developers. Okay, so we're trying to create a trail name. Let's just call this management events, right? This is the default trail buckets that will be created. So let's click on create trail. Okay, all right, so now we have this trail set. Okay, status is currently logging. Okay, so let's click on this. All right, so now we don't have any, CloudWatch log. The way this would work is, if you have your developers, set up new resources, right? You would be able to track them and, of course, track who did what, as I said earlier here. All right, and yeah, probably during the workshop would also expand on this. It's a very simple service to use. The major thing is you just need to understand that what you're doing is you are logging the data, the activity, happening within this account. All right, you're logging those activities, and for now this is management activities, which of course has to do with creating services and taking down those services. If we go down to the trails option here and we click on create trail, all right, so as you can see, you are saving this in an S3 bucket, right? So this is going to create a new bucket, but you can of course choose to save those logs in an existing bucket, right? Okay, and let's see the options we have here. So you can choose to integrate, CloudWatch logs, as I said earlier, right? And yeah, you can basically set up tags for tracking this specific, at least for identifying this, tags in AWS. The key value tags are used for identifying these resources. Okay, so it's a way to, basically assign, as the name implies, tags, right? So that you can track and identify this CloudTrail setup. All right, I hope you understand that. Okay. Sorry, a call is coming in from my teammate. I have to mute this. Uh, I'll call you right back. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. And yeah, this is basically how you use CloudTrail. I'm not setting up a CloudTrail account here. I'm not setting up a new CloudTrail here. I'm going to delete the one that we created already. Um, yeah, so we'll talk about this even more, right? If you take a look at the menu item here, you see you can set up, you can basically access your dashboard. And this is the history of what we have done right now. This is what we did right now. So it started logging, it created the bucket, right? Because we did not select the option to use an existing item. So it's basically tracking what happened. It started logging, it hit these put event selectors, it created the bucket, and it set up the this is the put bucket policy, right? So if you click on view full event history, just with that action that we actually carried out, a lot happened. Okay, and this is basically how you track those logs, right? And you can get to know who did what. As you can see, username, it's saying the root account did this. All right, as I said earlier, you don't use this for carrying out this kind of operations. I'm going to delete some of these items, by the way, once we're done with the class. Try as much as possible not to use your root account. All right. This is what I could get access to right now. But we'll talk about how you can also populate this data into what we call an Athena table. Okay, this is basically used for big data, and I'm sure if you have heard of Athena, you can search for that as well. AWS Athena to learn more about what Athena is used for, especially for people in the data space, right? Data engineers and data scientists basically. Okay, for storing big data. And when you store these items, you are expecting a lot of logs, right? A lot of activities happening. Even when you click a particular button and you perform a specific action, a lot of things happen behind the scenes. So you're expecting to have lots of data. So that is why we have a feature for querying those data and trying to better understand that data. In the lake option here, that will be for a different class. It's almost 7 p.m. So the last thing I'm going to discuss right now would be CloudFormation. And in the next class we'll dive into more details on that. Now there's something called infrastructure as code, right? So let's go into CloudFormation real quick. All right. So okay, so as a cloud engineer, you most times, when you are learning, you come in here to set up these things manually, right? But as you keep advancing or improving your skill, you get to understand that this is not the best way to work in the cloud, right? The best way is to, automate most of these things with code, right? So if you have heard of infrastructure as code, is basically, you as the cloud engineer setting up your infrastructure, creating new instances of your virtual machines, whether it's EC2, creating instances of your Lambda functions, and doing a lot of things basically using code. All right. And there are so many platforms that you might have heard of, like Terraform and the rest of them, right? CloudFormation is the offering from AWS to set up your services on AWS. We have CloudFormation, we have CDK, also known as Cloud Development Kit. We have AWS SAM, right? But CloudFormation is kind of like the basis. So whether you're using CDK or most of the other options, it's going to transform this during the deployment of those stacks, right? It's going to basically transform whatever you've written in the other options into CloudFormation, and AWS will then look through this. The AWS would look through this your CloudFormation scripts and then use that script to deploy or initialize those services on AWS. Okay, those resources on AWS. Most times you will hear me interchange, resources and services. I'm basically talking about resources right now. I'm a developer as well, so that is why you hear me use services a lot. Okay, so we're basically referring to resources, all right, which are the what the things we set up on the cloud. Okay, so don't be confused. Okay, so when I click on CloudFormation, you see it's the first thing we have here are the stacks. Now, when you set up a CloudFormation script, right, offline, you're basically going to run that script. It's going to deploy those services via your CLI, right? You run that, and it's going to use the AWS CLI, to deploy these scripts. Now, when you're deploying those scripts, they are called stacks, right? You set up a stack. So a script can deploy an EC2 instance. It can set up all the security groups, set up all the firewall settings within the same script, and even create like a connection between this particular resource and a bunch of other resources, right? So in a stack, you have like you can attach different resources, including the security groups, as I mentioned, and a bunch of things, right? Whatever you want to do, whatever you can do in the user interface here, you can do that via CloudFormation. All right, and it's a better way, and we actually advise people to use CloudFormation or use infrastructure as code, because when you set up something using infrastructure as code, if things don't go as planned, you can easily take everything down with a simple command, right? Just a single command can take everything down. So it's a better way to organize your deployment or your infrastructure setup. Okay, if you do that manually, you can actually make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, a single mistake can actually affect a bunch of other setups you've done, right? If it's in CloudFormation, if it's meant to work, if it's done correctly, everything should work. Okay, it's automated, right? The deployment is automated. You're not doing anything manually. It is faster even. And the when you're trying to destroy this so faster and easier, you're rest assured that I have taken everything down because I basically took everything down as defined in this script, okay, in this code. So I'll be showing you a sample code, in our next class. We just have 2 more minutes. So please, these are some sample stacks, right? For example, as you can see, referral app dev. Um, so this was set up using CloudFormation template for a serverless application, right? And I set this up. I remember setting this up via the serverless framework, in connection with AWS. So if I click on this stack, you see the way the stack is organized, right? So what are the things that happened? You start from the first step, the second step, amplify, setting up amplify test. These are the nested items, within the stack. And a lot of things happened here, as you can see, right? So a lot of things happened there with the time, of course, for tracking as well. And yeah, so you can then click on this to see the resources that were created, right, based on the definition of this stack. So when I click on the resources option here, you can then, track this. Let's use a flat view. All right, so you can then track this. What was created? An API gateway, a Lambda function, IAM role, right, which is identity and access management. The policies were set up, the log groups were created. Yeah, so basically, I think that is what we have here. The Lambda function, I've mentioned that already. So this is basically how that stack was set up, and these were the things that were created by just executing this code without coming into AWS to do that manually, right? And of course, you can track the outputs and even track the events, right? And with CloudTrail, you can record these events. And of course, with Cloud Logs, when you start using that particular resource that you've created, you can manage those records with. You can basically see and manage those logs using CloudWatch. Okay, so I hope this made it clear, right, to some of us. Just to give you a brief again on what CloudFormation is, it is a service on AWS that allows you to provision and manage infrastructure, right? AWS infrastructures and resources using code, okay? So you don't have to do it manually on the UI, you do that with code, right? And it allows you to define the infrastructure as code using templates that are written in either JSON or YAML formats, okay? So you can write this code with JSON or YAML. And remember, I mentioned earlier we have some other options. Most of the trending option right now, or the preferred option to most guys, would be CDK, because with CDK you can write the infrastructure code in your preferred language like Python or JavaScript or TypeScript. Okay, but at the end of the day, it compiles down into CloudFormation before it's been deployed on AWS. Okay, and the key features, you basically select templates, or you can define your custom, your custom. You can write your preferred, custom code to, update or delete or create resources in an automated manner. And the way it works is, CloudFormation would handle the resource dependencies, and it would basically create those resources, right, while picking the dependencies that are needed for that resource to be created, and it will do this in the right order. All right, and stacks, just like what I'm showing you here, stacks are used to organize the resources. Okay, so you use that to organize like a set of selected resources that should be deployed. So it goes into a stack, and it makes it easier to manage related resources, that were deployed as a single unit. Okay, so remember, these are all the resources I was showing you under the resource option here, and everything falls under a single unit when I selected it. It's a better way to see what is happening, right? And of course, you can choose to, shut it down. You see, we have the stack option, right? You can do this without coming to this place, obviously, but you can also decide to delete the stack from here, right? And what exactly are change sets when we say change sets in infrastructure as code? Basically, before you apply any change to infrastructure, you ideally, if you're using like the UI, you would basically come in here and try to set up those new changes manually. But of course, humans are error prone, so anything can happen. You can make mistakes, right? When you apply those change sets in your code, CloudFormation would then allow you to preview, the changes, right? Using what we call the change sets, right? You preview the changes, and if it's going to break or if it's going to, do something unexpected, of course you can track it most times, right? But even when you make mistakes and you are unable to track it, you can easily roll back, right? You can roll back. So when you make mistakes, we mostly call that drift, right? But yeah, you can always roll back, which is what makes CloudFormation and infrastructure as code a better option to setting up AWS resources. So I will stop here for now, and in the next session we'll discuss more details. So let me see some of the questions here. We have a bunch of questions already. So sorry, can this class be recorded? It's always recorded. You'll find it on YouTube. And trust me, you guys are going to have fun during the workshop sessions. It's hands-on. I'm going to be teaching you everything about, services like AWS Lambda, Lightsail, EC2, uh, uh, um, SES, for sending emails. And I'll be writing some code as well. But if you don't understand the code I write, it's fine. You're not expected to be writing those codes, just to show you, how to use these things and deploy to these things, deploy these resources in real time. So I'm sure you would have fun. So what is the difference between CloudWatch and CloudTrail? CloudWatch focuses on the resources after you've deployed them, right? CloudTrail is basically used for auditing, which is to track the activities, right? Who created this thing? What did this person do, right? And yeah, who shut down this thing? Who performed this action on our AWS account? So you are trailing, the those accounts, right? Or those the people that did this, right? Especially focusing on the resources. Do you understand? So it's mostly for auditing, while CloudWatch is for basically logging, okay? The activities, right? The application activities. If somebody made a request to a Lambda function, it is recorded. If there's an error, if something happened, right? If it did not execute successfully, or if it was successful, you track that using CloudWatch. All right. I hope you understand that, KFox. So the classes are usually recorded and will be available on the Top Universe profile on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. Thank you very much for that, Temidayo. And if you visit cohorts.topuniverse.org, you would also find most of these things. I notice most of you don't even know that we have that. And I usually drop that on Discord. You are not very active on Discord, and that is not good because most of the activities, there are details on Discord. So this is not reachable at the moment. Of course, I know why that is. So this will be fixed shortly. I'm sure the developers are working on this. But ideally, you can basically see all the classes here, right? And once this is fixed this evening, I would let you guys know. You can see all the classes from front end, back end, UI, UX, cloud engineering, and they are all open, okay? They are all open. So, yeah. All right. So, are you saying IAM will be safer and more monitored for usage, sir? What's the clarification between root accounts? Okay. So IAM is basically what we call identity and access management. It's a way to set up, your accounts and define proper, permissions, right? So the root account is the account you use in creating, you created an AWS account. That is your root account. When you go through IAM, you can basically, set up new user accounts, right? Or new roles, right? Or you can even create like API keys, for developers, right? So we'll talk about it. You manage access to your AWS resources, via by setting up groups, users, roles, policies, and you have the access analyzer to also track most of those things. Okay. All right. So I hope you understand that. Please, I can seem to bypass. I can't. Do you mean you can't seem to bypass having an AWS account just yet? Wisdom, if that is what you mean. There will be a video teaching you how to set up a new account, right? And of course, as I recommended earlier, if you have a DOM account, it's always better. Okay. I use a DOM account for most of my AWS accounts. This is just one account. If I swipe here, you see I have another account running here. Okay. This is just for testing and development, right? And I basically use a DOM account. Sometimes, depending on who I'm setting this up for, we also use the virtual cards, right? Like what I mentioned earlier. But if you have a DOM account, right, with your bank, right, that is actually preferred. Okay. If you don't, then you can use the virtual accounts I actually mentioned. earlier. So it's already 7:08. Sorry for the delay. Sorry for taking your time. I'll see you in the next class. I'm sure that's coming up soon. And I would give you like an overview or like would go through some of these things again. You can ask more questions. So that session will be more, focused on questions. So come back with your questions. And okay, so Pamela, the workshops, the workshop, timetable or the workshop details will be shared with you. Okay, as I shared earlier, we just deployed the website where we can basically put these workshops with the dates. All right, and it will be shared with you, Pamela, and the rest of us. Okay, so just make sure you're active on the Discord server because most of these conversations will be happening there. I will be, the plan is to make sure that you guys are able to learn a lot hands-on. So if you're on the Discord server where you can always, ask me questions, I think you would have the opportunity to learn more. So have a wonderful evening, guys, and thank you very much, Amaka, for setting this up. Take care, guys. Hello, Amaka, are you there? Amaka, can you hear me? If you're speaking, you're muted. Okay, so I think, yeah, I don't think Amaka is speaking yet. Okay, Amaka, I think most of the folks here are asking for the attendance, but it was not shared. So I think Amaka is having some network issues. Guys, please make sure you're in the next class, and I'm sure the attendance will be shared in the next class, okay? And Amaka and the team would look for a way to resolve, not sharing attendance in this session. Apologies. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you by 8 p.m. All right? Uh, Amaka, I can see you just joined back again. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess Amaka just shared the attendance. Please check the chat, fill the attendance.
Yeah, I just did. Sorry about that. I'm having a bit of network issues.
All right, no issues, no issues. So please fill the attendance on time, and I'll see you shortly. Bye.
Hi, guys.